Hey guys, Drifter here. Modern Warfare 3 has finally been released on all systems and in all regions, and the campaign has been out for about a week or so. So everybody's had a lot of time to play the game, and I'm here to share with you my review of Modern Warfare 3. So the bulk of the review today is going to be on the multiplayer, which is what you're seeing gameplay of right now. But this year, uniquely, I feel that campaign and zombies are also worth mentioning. So I'm going to do both of those very briefly in the beginning. Then we're going to talk about our sponsor, which is a green energy company. I'm super excited about that. And then we're going to get into the multiplayer, which is the meat of everything. But there are timestamps down below in the description for you to skip around if you want to. So without any further ado, let's talk about the campaign. And unfortunately, I have to start off pretty negative on this one. It's pretty much just going to get increasingly positive as the video goes on. But the campaign is possibly the worst Call of Duty campaign that I've ever played, and quite possibly the worst one that's ever been made. It's right down there with Black Ops 4, and I'm not even kidding. When I say I don't usually cover campaign, that's because campaigns are a little bit samey from year to year. Usually there's not one that stands out to me a whole lot. I don't often even play them beyond the first couple of levels after I get a feel for it. But this one I feel is bad enough to mention in the video because there are a lot of people that buy Call of Duty for the campaign. It's very, very short. If you play fast, if you're an aggressive, good player, you can beat the campaign in about 2.5 hours. If you play on the hardest difficulty, maybe 5 hours because there'll be a bunch of resets, which means it is insanely short and does not provide a lot of value if you're buying for the campaign. Unfortunately, the campaign also only has a couple of traditional campaign levels, with most of them being big open world run around and find the objectives on a Warzone-like map kind of levels, which nobody really likes. And the open world levels, I'll say, are not particularly fun or well designed. In a lot of cases, you can just run right past enemies like they're not even there, or kind of like glitch through the objectives and stuff. And they felt just kind of uninspired. I would even say the AC-130 mission is uninspired and less exciting than the ones in previous games. Weirdly, in the campaign, most of the weapons are from Modern Warfare 2. There's only a handful of Modern Warfare 3 weapons in the campaign, which I again find to be confusing and evidentiary of this just being DLC. The story is very rushed. It feels very disjointed. Every cutscene where the characters talk kind of just feels like an excuse to get the characters that you know to the next open world map. So it's like, do open world map, thing happens, let's get in a plane, let's go to the next open world map, and it kind of gets a little samey very, very fast. As far as the story itself goes, without any spoilers in here, I find the story choices and characters to honestly be a little bit confusing and kind of the opposite of fan service, a little disappointing for fans. For me, this feels a lot like a $20 add-on campaign for Modern Warfare 2. Like if this were supposed to be the mid-season update for Modern Warfare 2 to get us ready for Modern Warfare 3, which would come in a year or two, I would say that would kind of make sense. And it does make sense given that apparently, according to a number of leaks and reputable sources, the campaign in the game was originally supposed to be a premium DLC, which we'll talk more about later. And it's generally going to get a lot more positive from here on out. Next up, I want to talk about zombies, because zombies has become super important to every Call of Duty game. There are lots of people that buy COD just for the magic nostalgia that is COD Zombies. And this is the mode that I was the most surprised about. They call it MWZ, Modern Warfare Zombies, kind of a pun on DLC. And I was really scared and worried about it, but I've been very happy from what I've seen and played so far. The nutshell is that this is basically the Modern Warfare version of Outbreak from Cold War, which makes sense given how much Treyarch worked on it, and the previous thing they did was Outbreak in Cold War. It's an open world zombies exploration style map, kind of like DLC. You land in this massive map in a helicopter, you run around in this huge open world, and try to complete various objectives on the map. There are some people criticizing it, saying that not enough zombies spawn, and that sometimes it can feel a little bit sparse, but I find the zombies to be very easy to locate, and the spawn rate's a little bit low in the tier 1 zone, which is low threat. When you move up to tier 2 and tier 3 and the zones get more difficult, you'll find a lot more zombies and a lot more things to murder you. But the point is that you can either go for survival and just points and exploration, or you can complete Warzone-style contracts on the map, which have their own rewards built into them. And the main focus of this big open world map is finding schematics and rare collectibles. Then after you've acquired all of your craftable loot and goodies, you can exfil just like in DMZ, and you take everything with you. Sort of. You can unlock the gun, but you don't bring the pack-a-punch with you. You don't bring some of the upgrades with you, but especially those schematics, if you come out with them, you can now craft the schematic of whatever it is that you found, which means that you can redeploy with it. So the game has a huge upgrade tree. There's a lot going on there that I can just barely understand. I don't play a lot of zombies. I have seen Mr. Raffle Waffles and Dalek and those guys go through. There are definitely Easter eggs on the map to solve. Definitely classic, like Treyarch style, solve the runes, break the code kind of Easter egg. And some enormous bosses too, which look really fun. I like the three-headed but two-legged dog monster that kind of stamps around the map. Overall, Zombies is not flawless. It has some problems. It's got some rough areas, but it's a really strong start for Zombies, especially given how much this entire project was rushed, at least according to the rumors that I read online. And I imagine that future seasons of Zombies are going to be really fun because they'll have more time to add more bosses, more crazy missions, more unique stuff. And I would give this a rating, again, as we said in the beginning, of pleasantly surprised. There were a lot of ways that Modern Warfare Zombies could have gone wrong, but most of those ways went right, and I'm overall really happy with this mode. Today's sponsor is Octopus Energy, which is a green energy company dedicated to saving you money all while saving the planet. And this is for Texas residents only. So Octopus Energy takes advantage of the deregulated energy markets here to trade, buy, and sell clean energy at the lowest possible market prices. I've teamed up with them to do a giveaway this year. If you swap your energy, which by the way is a painless instant process, you get a $50 credit plus a chance to win a giveaway prize of a PlayStation, an Edge controller, and a new TV, or a gaming computer that should get you from zero to gaming instantly, along with a 27-inch 1440p monitor. I even got this video embedded on the landing page, which is linked down there below, that explains a lot more of this. But essentially, Octopus Energy is there to help save you money. Most people get price reductions of roughly 25 to 40% depending on their use and region, and that's all while saving the planet because this is all solar and wind energy. They also have extremely helpful features to save even more money, all bundled under Intelligent Octopus, which is smart thermostats and intelligent chargers for your EVs and the fan club. So this is something that if you sign up, you get entered to win. I have never done a sponsor like this, so all cards on the table, all above deck, honest. The expected number of signups is somewhere between 10 and 20, which is insanely low, which gives you a 5 to 10% chance of winning. Prize package number 1 is this gaming PC with an RTX 4060 in there, and this really nice 1440p 165Hz monitor, so you can go from zero to PC gaming instantly. Or if you're already a PC gamer, the second prize package you can pick from is a whole PlayStation 5, a whole DualSense Edge controller, so we can use those paddles to jump around the map like a madman, and a TLC 50-inch smart TV, specifically a gaming TV. It's actually one of the ones that Call of Duty has been promoting. TLC is a fantastic brand, very low input delay here despite the TV size. So go ahead and go check out the website. You can put your zip code here, and if you're in Texas, and it'll kind of show you what your bill might look like with Octopus versus what you've currently got. All right, so we've talked about a lot of stuff here. I think it's time to move into the main focus of today's video, which is multiplayer Modern Warfare 3. We're keeping with the trend of the video by increasing the positivity with our multiplayer review. I was overall very happy with the way that multiplayer turned out, especially the base gameplay. There were some devils in the details, some flaws that we're definitely going to talk about, but the overall concept, the overall vibe and design goals of multiplayer I thought were really, really good. And first thing, Sledgehammer Games is listening to feedback about certain topics, one of them being map brightness and visibility. Between the beta and now, most of the maps have had their brightness slightly increased, their saturation slightly increased, so the colors are a little punchier, and they even reduced the fog haze effect at a distance, which means Modern Warfare 3 is probably the best looking Modern Warfare game ever made, because almost all of the others rely very heavily on the 50 Shades of Brown color scheme engine thing, where everything is dusty and depressing and you can't see your enemies and it's dark. And that was a thing that did happen in the beta sometimes, as I had a little difficulty seeing enemies at long ranges, but it's much better now in the full release multiplayer. So you shouldn't have that hard of a time identifying dark corner McDougalls or people hiding in the mist. On the topic of looks and maps, there is a huge number of multiplayer maps at launch, which is great. Some years for Call of Duty, especially for 6v6 multiplayer, we haven't had very many maps at launch, and all of these maps are remakes or reimaginings of Modern Warfare 1, 2, or 3 maps. All of these classic maps that you know and love, Terminal, Sub Base, Overpass, stuff like that. I could go on and on and on, which is really good. There's nothing fully new, which is a little bad. We'll come back to that in a moment. All of the maps being remakes really tickles the nostalgia centers in the back of my brain and makes me very happy. That sort of good feeling when I feel like I've stepped back to like 2011 or 2010, but I'm doing it now better all over again, is really good. And from a marketing standpoint, that has to work great. And it also doesn't require me to relearn new maps. One of the frustrating things about getting into a new FPS game is when you have to learn a map from scratch. How can I get to this point before the enemy does? Where's the nade spots? Where's the climb spots? Where's the little cheeky peeky areas? We don't really have to do that because they're mostly the same. They made a few little changes here and there, but for the most part, the maps are the same. Though I do feel like the game could use a little something that's new. I know there's a war map and I know there's ground war and those are new things, but I really want a little bit of new multiplayer maps, and we're not quite getting that. So when the nostalgia wears off, I feel like I'm kind of missing something. However, I do also want to say that for the most part, the old maps play really well with the new movement. That's something that people worried about a lot in the beta, and I saw some conflicting opinions that the old maps were designed to have a certain flow and a certain way to play within the context of a certain type of movement and gun system, and they were worried that it wouldn't translate well, and there are definitely some people that are going to disagree with me, but I do think it translated pretty well in this case. On average, I find that spawns are better than they were from the beta, so we did learn some things. For the most part, they have improved, but there are a few scenarios where the spawns were obscenely bad. I watched Hutch actually respawn inside of a car and die. That was pretty funny. You can respawn inside objects, and I think they disabled 3 maps from a hardpoint because the hardpoint spawns were so broken, people were just like straight up spawn trapping and spawn locking. So there are some flaws there. So I'll say most of the time improvement, sometimes absolute disaster. Continuing with the core mechanics, I wanted to talk about movement speed. The movement speed is still very fast, same as the beta, maybe slightly faster. That's a subjective opinion. I'm not in the best of health like Exclusive Ace to go measure everything, but subjectively it feels pretty snappy. Lots of climbing, lots of mantling, lots of unique movements, knee sliding, tack sliding, all sorts of stuff like that. And the knee sliding is usually really fun. I do feel that there's a little bit of rocket skates on the feet, but I don't mind that, and for the most part it makes it a fast-paced, frantic game, and you really feel in control of your character, which is something that's very important to the Call of Duty identity. However, there are some moments where other people just kind of, movement gods, they'll bunny hop around you and do goofy things, and they're really hard to track. That's annoying sometimes, but I do like fast-paced games, and I like mastering movement systems like that, so my gamer brain says, well, I guess I just got to get good on that. My opinions on the higher health pool haven't changed very much since beta, and makes them feel more like gun fights and less like just getting picked and dying instantly. And it also prevents you from getting cheesed as you move from one piece of cover to another. Usually people need to get 3 or 4 clean hits, and again, you don't just die instantly, which for the most part, I like. I think it's better for the game. I do think it's a little bit weirder if the connection is bad. If the connection is bad, this higher health pool can feel really, really annoying. So there are some other topics we'll talk about a little bit more briefly. I think the weapons look good and feel good. They have a very clean, distinct look, and when you shoot them, they don't have a whole lot of visual shake and not a lot of gas effects and stuff like that, which makes it way easier to track your target. It's way easier for the quality of gameplay of playing the game, but that does mean they're less realistic, and they're a little bit more Treyarchy in that sometimes they can feel like toy guns. Personally, I don't care about that, but I know a variety of fans do. I think that equipment, streaks, and all nades and tacticals and all that kind of stuff and perks, they all feel like they're in a pretty reasonable pace. We haven't had time for the true meta to settle, so that opinion might change, but it seems like a great start. The audio balance is, I would say, nice, but it's really kind of the COD standard thing. It's good enough. It gets the job done. It's a little wonky. It does have the classic thing of my teammates are all elephants with pots and pans on their feet. Enemies relatively quiet. Sometimes it just doesn't play the footsteps. Somebody's running dead silence or ninja or whatever, or the engine bugs out or something, and you just don't hear them the way you should. But Call of Duty games have been that way for like a decade now, so that's really nothing new. The radar is pretty normal. The HUD elements are pretty normal. They decided not to break the mold there. All of that stuff seems to be working as it should be. Oh, and one positive thing I can say, the camo system's really user-friendly. The camo system is a huge improvement over Modern Warfare 2. Lots of people love it. Seems like it's going to be easy and fun to unlock stuff. And the camos themselves are quite nice. I feel like the base camos that the game launched with are really top-notch quality. And I believe that multiplayer in general seems to have a core emphasis on fun. Not so much true balance, but just plain old fun, which I'm all there for since this is a casual game. And now we're kind of rounding out the positive section of multiplayer before we move to the flaws. But before we do that, I want to emphasize that what I feel that this game does best is mastering its core gameplay elements. It knows what it wanted to be. It knows what it needed to be. It knows what the community wanted. They wanted faster. They wanted crazier. They wanted brighter colors. They wanted goofier guns and stuff like that. And it's kind of the exact opposite direction of Modern Warfare 2 and much better for it. And I think that most of the flaws that I'm going to discuss are not as important as these core elements. So I will tip my hat or my headset and my increasingly gray and balding hair to Sledgehammer Games for really knowing what makes multiplayer fun. So now we're in the flaws section. I think this is the really gnarly section that everybody likes, and I'm gonna start off by talking trash. The user interface is really poorly designed. I would say it is a sin against design itself. It's a crime against humanity. It's really annoying and bulky. There's stuff going on. It's needlessly complicated, and I think it's terrible. The user interface for navigating the games and menu is just the worst of all of the modern FPS games I've played. And on top of that, there's a very unmodern way to boot the game. You now have to boot the Call of Duty HQ, and in order to boot Modern Warfare 3, you also have to have Modern Warfare 2 installed. And I did not personally get this experience, but some people said it takes several restarts to get into the game and get going. And depending on your console or your PC or what you're installing and not, the install size can be between 120 gigabytes and up to 200 gigabytes. Again, depending on your system and your installs. And that is just entirely too big. That is unreasonably too big. I had to uninstall other games from my computer just to get Call of Duty to fit. The same is true for most people's consoles. That's not fair to the gamers. I mean, it like monopolizes your entire hard drive. I think that's total nonsense, and it indicates that it's not very well optimized. That is just backwards in time. My God, if you have a slow internet, it could take you a week to download it. Other modern FPS games don't require a fraction of that much space. So that's really frustrating. The next thing I think is really bad is that the weapon unlock system requires you to complete daily challenges for the aftermarket parts. So if you don't do your daily challenges that week, you don't get that part until the end of the season, because the challenges go away and they're locked. But after the season is over, which can be like 2 or 3 months, then it becomes a permanent challenge for you to do and unlock the part. That makes the unlocking aspect very, very grindy, and it also punishes people that can't get on for some reason. If you're a student, if you're a family man or woman, or if you're just going on vacation and you just miss a week or two, you could straight up be locked out of accessing that aftermarket part for like 2 to 3 months. And they probably did this to increase player retention, to guarantee that people get on every day and play and drive those monthly active users up. But what it's probably going to do is irritate people, because some people might be very mad if they miss an extremely important aftermarket part. Like from the beta, you could get one that modified the little Renetti burst pistol into basically the MP7, so you could have a secondary SMG, and it was insanely strong. I think some of the others are going to be very strong, and I think that's a very bad unlock system. Also, I don't think skill-based matchmaking has changed at all. Whatever system was in place that you all hate, that's probably the same. I don't think it's going to be changing anytime soon. So if you don't like skill-based matchmaking, you're pretty much stuck with it here. On the topic of graphics, the graphics are a very slight downgrade from previous years. which I'm oddly happy about because visually it keeps the game simpler. It's a lot like Battlefield 2042 in that regard. If you think about when Battlefield came out, people noticed that the tanks don't make tire tracks, that the water doesn't reflect right, that the mud and particle effects aren't as good, and that a lot of details are simpler or simply removed. And Modern Warfare 3 is very similar to that. If you look closely, a lot of the details really aren't there like they are in old games, but it makes the game less visually messy. It keeps it simpler. It fits in line with the aesthetics. So somehow I'm a little bit happier with the slightly worse graphics. In terms of optimization, the game runs well enough on low-spec PCs. It seems to run fine on consoles, but given the install size and the performance given the simpler graphics, there's no way that it's truly optimized, you know? Alright, that more or less rounds up multiplayer. I did want to take a little bit to talk about Warzone, which unfortunately is not out yet, but I've seen a lot of gameplay of Warzone from the reveal, and I've talked to creators that played it, and from everything that I've seen and heard, Warzone definitely looks like one of the best parts of the game. It's definitely the part that I'm most excited for, and all of the Warzone changes look really positive. I think they're going to put Al Mazrah to shame. We're going to get a new map, a good map, a new engine, some new weapons, some new mechanics, and I've got high hopes for Warzone, but it's not out yet, so I can't review it. I think the community guess is that it'll probably come out this fall, so a month or two, but that'll give you time to level up your multiplayer weapons anyway. And now we're moving toward the end of the video where we have the conclusion. And my conclusion is that the biggest flaw with Modern Warfare 3 is that it is being marketed as a full game when it's clearly not. Between the leaks, certain file names, and requirements that you have to have old games installed to even open the new game, it's very obvious that this, at least early in development, was intended to be a premium DLC. Because Modern Warfare 2 was supposed to be the first COD game to start a 2-year cycle, and it would make sense that in the middle of that, since COD fans are used to the 1-year cycle, that we would have this huge, awesome DLC and go to Modern Warfare 2.5, but unfortunately it didn't seem popular enough, and Activision panicked, and they kind of like course-corrected mid-development to try to turn this into a full game. And that's not a knock to the developers either. I have nothing bad to say about Sledgehammer, Infinity Ward, or Treyarch, any of the various support studios that worked on this. The leaks that I read indicated that the developers had very little time to put this together. It was a really rushed project, another miracle COD, as I've heard people say. They had to run a lot of the creative decisions by Infinity Ward, which, even if Infinity Ward is top-notch, that adds some degree of delay and bureaucracy to it. And apparently the scope of the project changed several times throughout development when developers were already rushed. So, as a premium DLC that could have come out for free or a relatively low cost in the middle of a 2-year COD cycle, I would say this game is nothing short of fantastic. If we're treating this as a brand new Call of Duty game justifying the $70 price, I think it falls well short of that goal. Kind of like what I said in the beta reviews, if you skipped Modern Warfare 2 or haven't played COD in a long time, then this might feel like a breath of fresh air to you, especially with the old maps and how hard they're pushing for the nostalgia. But if you've been playing every Call of Duty game for the last couple of cycles, and especially if you played Modern Warfare 2, this is very much so going to feel like a mid-season DLC that's been overpriced. It's an Overwatch to Overwatch 2 type scenario, unfortunately. However, despite these flaws, my overall opinion is that I'm quite happy with this, mostly because I really do like the multiplayer. And I also did not play Modern Warfare 2, so it feels fine to me. It doesn't quite feel as samey or repetitive as it probably does to a lot of you. So I'm very happy with the multiplayer. I think Zombies is off to a very strong start. It looks very promising to me. Warzone looks extremely promising. I'm hyped for Warzone. That's really what I want to get my hands on. Campaign, unfortunately, is hot dog water, which is where I think the game is most missing. That campaign is right down there with Black Ops 4. It is not worth the money. It's part of the package that's missing. And again, campaign's terrible. Don't play campaign. So that is my overall review of the game and my opinions. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. And if you want to save money on your electricity in Texas, check out my sponsor. Drifter out.